people. Welcome to Rebel Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Jacob Stuckey. I'm super excited to be releasing this first episode of my podcast. This has been something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to having a dream or a goal in your head and just kind of feeling a little fearful and a little hesitant on doing it. And I kind of thought about it and I was like, man, I really want to do a fantasy football podcast. And I just decided to push through it and to get it started, and we'll see where it goes. So, a little bit about myself. I am from the greater Seattle area. I am a follower of Jesus. I place my faith and my identity in Christ. And I'm also very passionate about sports and fantasy football. I've been playing fantasy football for probably over 10 years now, and I love it. I love talking about it. I love harassing my friends about it. And I decided I want to build a community that loves to do the same. And my goal with this channel and this podcast is to create a community that loves fantasy football and loves to help each other out with it, but also wants to encourage and love other people. I want us to be respectful and loving to one another. Obviously, you can still have fun and harass each other, but it should be in a loving way. And that's what I want to do. And so I want to bring you guys along for the ride and see where it goes. And so for this first episode, we're going to get ready for the draft. I know a lot of people will do their drafts late August, early September. Some of you guys probably have already done your drafts, which props to you guys because I know there's a lot of injuries popping up in training camp right now. And who knows if there's going to be like a Jordy Nelson type injury coming up, but hopefully not. Hopefully not. I'm just saying, you don't know. But if you drafted already, props to you. But for those that haven't drafted, I want to share my top 16 wide receiver rankings with you. Now, these are the wide receivers that I think are going to finish in the top 16 by the end of the season. Now, one of the biggest questions for me, hardest parts for me on this list was figuring out the number one wide receiver. I know years past, it's been fairly easy to choose the number one. Last year it was kind of Davante or Tyreek. And this year, a lot of people are saying Cooper Kupp, which I definitely think he deserves it. I think he does deserve it. But I'm a little hesitant. And I want to talk about that. I love Cooper Kupp. I think he's a beast. What he did last year was historic. I was fortunate and lucky enough to draft him in the 5th round last year. I had no idea he was going to have that season, obviously. And I still ended up losing the championship. So it doesn't always work out, unfortunately. But he had a crazy season, which makes me obviously want to draft him number one overall this year. But my hesitancy with doing that is because it's almost unprecedented of someone having a season like that and repeating that top finish. I think Cooper Kupp will still be top 5. I think that's a pretty solid goal. I just don't know if he'll finish number one at his position again. And that leaves the question, who will finish number one if not Cooper Kupp? And I think it's Justin Jefferson. I think Justin Jefferson can definitely finish number one at the end of the year. Now, I'm shooting my shot, so I'm not telling you to discredit Cooper Kupp or to automatically choose Justin Jefferson. But in my opinion, I feel like they are very close together. And a big reason why I'm choosing Justin Jefferson is because they have a very high-powered offense. One of the things they've been missing the last couple of years is those unique, high-quality offensive schemes. Now with a new head coach and an offense that Cooper Kupp thrived in last year, there's a lot of hype around the Vikings. I think some people may call it baloney. Some people may feel like they're overhyped. And I understand that because the Vikings have been overhyped for a long time. But I think this is the year that they can do it. I'm not saying they'll win the Super Bowl, but with how well Justin Jefferson has played the last couple of years, and now they keep pretty much most of their best pieces. They have a new head coach. They have new offensive schemes. They're planning on getting Justin Jefferson the ball in other ways than just being a wideout. They're going to use him like Cooper Kupp was used last year. And I'm excited for that. I think that's just going to boost his ceiling. Last year, he finished at number 4 in both full PPR and half. And I think he can finish number 1. Now, that basically shows you that, okay, if I think he's number 1, who's number 2? And we just talked about him, and that's Cooper Kupp. 1 and 2 to me are very close. I can kind of flip flop them like Monday and then flip back to the other guy on a Tuesday. It's pretty close to me, but I feel confident calling my shot on Justin Jefferson. I think both of these guys will finish top 5. And I think if you get either of them on your team, you're not going to be disappointed. Cooper Kupp is a beast. He's awesome. He's fun to watch. It hurts me to like put him at 2 because I love watching him play and it's fun having him on your fantasy team. But I think both of these guys are going to be super consistent and reliant for your fantasy team. So number 3 is, I think, Jamar Chase. I know that a lot of people kind of have these guys 1, 2, 3 in different orders. I think with what Jamar had done last year with Joey B is crazy. He had a great rookie season. They made the Super Bowl, and he was a big reason for that. I know that going into last season, I was a little hesitant because they still had T. Higgins, they still had Tyler Boyd, and yet Jamar still outproduced both those guys. I think T. Higgins is going to have a good year as well, but I think Jamar has that connection with Joe Burrow, and it definitely showed last year. And I think he'll continue it. I think he's definitely a top 5 player. I don't necessarily see him getting past number 3 in finishing, but I definitely think he can get inside the top 5 this year. Last year, he finished at 5, and I kind of see that happening again. Number 4 is Davante Adams. Now, this was tricky for me. If Davante Adams was still on the Packers, I would probably put him at 1 or 2. I think arguably he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. Ability, talent, skills, like he's amazing. He's on a new team now with the Las Vegas Raiders with Derek Carr, his homie. And they're trying to see if they can recapture that magic from college. I think a lot of people are really hyped on him. A lot of people think they can do it. I'm kind of like, I think they can, but I still don't think Derek Carr is Aaron Rodgers. I think Davante Adams will definitely elevate Carr's game, but I don't really see Adams finishing higher than 4. I think he can, but with Derek Carr, I feel like that kind of puts a cap on a ceiling. Some people may disagree with, which is totally fine. If you want to call your shot on the ability and the history of Davante Adams, and you think he's going to be higher than 4, that's awesome. Go for it. I mean, fact of the matter is, if you draft him, you're going to be pretty happy with him on your team. I know that if he's my wide receiver 1, I don't care if he's top 5 or top 3. He's still going to be a beast, and you're going to be pretty happy with him. I just feel like him being on a new team with Carr, and it's been a while since they played together, I'm not as high on that as other people, but that's just me. All right, number 5. I got Stefon Diggs. I think a lot of people, this is kind of their big 5. It kind of goes in different orders. I think for me, 1 through 4, JJ, Cooper Kupp, Jamar, Davante, they're pretty close together. I think if you were to interchange them, I wouldn't really be mad. Like if you put Davante at 2 or even 1, Jamar at 2, Cooper at 3. Like if you move them around, I think that makes total sense. But in my opinion, I think Stefon Diggs should stay at 5. Some people have him higher, and I'm not hating on Stefon Diggs. I think a big reason why he's been so successful is his connection with Josh Allen. And they have a really high-powered and good team. But they do have some weaknesses. I don't love their running back room. I think everyone talks about that all the time. But Stefon Diggs' connection with Allen definitely shows like how powerful that team is. And if Gabe Davis steps up this year, that could take some pressure off Diggs, which I think will help him. But I still kind of see him finishing at 5. Last year, he finished at number 7, full PPR and half. Um, but I see him finishing at 5 this year, which I is a great finish. I think he's going to be pretty good. And obviously, just like these other guys, you're going to be pretty happy to have him as your wide receiver 1. Number 6, I got Tyreek. This one's interesting to me because there's a lot of people that have him like close to 10 or even like 11, 12, and I just don't see it. He's still Tyreek in my mind. And I know he's on a new team. He's got Tua as his quarterback and not Patrick. That's obviously a change, but I don't think Tua's as bad as a lot of people fear. And one thing to me is thinking about, okay, Tyreek, he elevates the guys around him. He's crazy fast. He is one of the best in the game. But then also thinking about last year, we were drafting him like top 1 or top 2. And so what changed? He's on a new team. And I understand that my rankings with Davante Adams kind of that was an influence was he's on a new team, a new quarterback. Which is why I dropped him back a couple spots. And I dropped Tyreek back a little bit too. He's at 6 instead of 1 or 2. But I don't think he's 10. I don't think he's the 10th best wide receiver. He's way better than that. And I think you're going to be pretty happy having him on your team if he's your wide receiver 1, or somehow if he drops and you get him as your second wide receiver, that's pretty awesome. But yeah, I'm excited for Tyreek. I'm not too disappointed or too discouraged with him being on the Dolphins. I think they have a pretty good team. The fact that he has Jaylen Waddle next to him, I think will help him. Just like when he was on the Chiefs, like he had Kelsey next to him. And I know different positions, but Kelsey did a lot in alleviating that pressure from Tyreek. And I think the same is going to be with Waddle and Gesicki. So yeah, I'm excited for him. I don't know why a lot of people are down on him, but I think he'll be pretty good. Number 7, we got CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb. No Amari Cooper. It's pretty much just him on an island. All his other wide receivers are hurt. And that's obviously not true. They still got some other guys. They got some rookies. I think Jalen Tolbert's going to be pretty good. But CeeDee Lamb is a guy that there's like an article posted a couple days ago of his teammates calling him that dude. And I think he is. I think he's that dude. I think he definitely can produce this year. I know that last year I was super high on him. I kind of reached for him and got him in the 3rd, like early 3rd last year. And I was hoping that he was going to be a top 10, top 5 guy. But he finished at 19 full PPR, which kind of hurt me. It hurt me a little bit. But I think he can do it. I think Dak Prescott will obviously look to give him the ball. My one kind of concern is, does he have enough weapons around him to take that pressure off? But I think they do. They have Zeke still. I'm pretty high on Zeke. I think he's going to do pretty good. And they have Tony Pollard, who they're planning on using him in the passing game more. And then they have Dalton Schultz and Tolbert and some of those other young wide receivers. So I think he's going to do pretty well. I think he's a beast. And even if he gets focused by defenses or double pressured, I think he's that guy. I think he can power through it. So I'm thinking he'll finish top 7. I think that's a pretty good spot for him. But I definitely think he can be top 10. Number 8 is Deebo Samuel. Now, Deebo Samuel had a crazy year last year. But the fact that I think in my league, a guy drafted him in like the 8th round last year, and he finished as the 2nd best wide receiver in a half PPR, 3rd best in full. Man, I have not always been as high on Deebo as other people. I think going into last year, I was worried about his injuries, and he was not on my draft board at all. I don't think I got him in any of my leagues. And I was wrong, obviously. And I think that he can do, I think he can finish top 10 again. I think the fact that he just got paid, Shanahan is very confident in him. And Deebo recently said that he doesn't have a problem being the wide back position, as he called it. I think that's good news. I think the fact that they use him like anywhere and everywhere on the field, They're confident in him. They're going to give him the ball. I think he has a pretty high ceiling. I'm hesitant on his injury history, but he proved last year that he can fight through those little nicks and bruises and play pretty much a full season. I'm a little hesitant because of injuries, but I think, man, he has a really high ceiling, and I think he'll definitely finish top 10. I think that's his floor, to be honest, barring injury. But I think he can finish top 5. I would just rather take those other guys that I listed. I feel more confident in their health, and kind of their trajectory rather than the Deebo. But I know a lot of people like him more than that. They put him higher than 8, but that's just kind of where I have him. Number 9, I have Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is a guy to me that he's Mr. Consistency. He's 30 years old and he's still been one of the best and most consistent wide receivers in the NFL for a long time. And I think that'll continue this year. Second year under Brandon Staley, and this is Justin Herbert's third season. I think his connection with Herbert is evident. I think Keenan's ability is evident. I think he's a great route runner. He's quick, he's shifty, and he catches a lot of balls. So for full PPR, he's a beast. Last year, he finished at 11 full PPR, and he finished at 14 half. So that's 3 spots difference. So obviously, if you're in half PPR, I may put him outside the top 10, but full PPR, I feel pretty confident of him being right inside at number 9. I think he's a beast. I think Herbert's going to do really well this year, and I think Keenan will just continue to get a lot of catches. He's a PPR magnet. Number 10, I'm going with another guy that's very consistent, and that's Mike Evans. Mike Evans, he's another guy that normally I don't look to. It's funny, I was looking through his history, and for whatever reason, the stereotype that I have from him is that he's always hurt. And I looked at his history, and he's played like full seasons. Like I think he only had one season that he was out, like 3-4 games. But every other season, he's only missed 1 or 2 games. Like I don't know why I have injury in my head for him. Maybe it's just that he gets hurt, leaves the game, comes back. Like he's crazy, but he somehow finds a way to play almost a full season, and he's so consistent. Like last year, he finished at 9 overall, full PPR, number 8 half PPR. He catches a lot of touchdowns, and I think the fact that Chris Godwin may be out for a little bit, I mean Tom Brady just has to look for him. He has to get Mike Evans the ball. He's basically their win condition, and I think Tom Brady will definitely do that. And I think number 10 is a pretty good spot for him. I think some people, they may have him higher, they may have him lower. I think he'll definitely make top 15. But I think with how much Tom Brady's going to look for him while Chris Godwin's going to be out for a little bit, most likely, unless he somehow comes back for week 1. But I think even when Chris Godwin's back, that's what's so cool about Mike Evans is that he still does work. Even when they have Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, like Tom Brady still found Mike Evans. And so I think he'll continue to do that. Number 11, I got Mike Williams. Ooh, Mike Williams. This is one for me where I think about Cooper Kupp last year. I was able to pick him up in the 5th round. The year before that, Stefon Diggs was like a 4th, 5th round, and he finished at like number 2. I think Mike Williams is that guy this year. I think he's that sleeper. Now, he's not necessarily a sleeper. A lot of people are really hyped on him. A lot of people may choose him higher than that. I know some people put him like top 5, but I think he can finish top 5. I put him at 11 because I feel more confident having these other guys as my wide receiver 1. I think when you're drafting, if you pick Mike Williams as your wide receiver 1, like you got to really believe it. You got to really believe that he's going to be a top 10, top 5 guy. That's like if I picked Cooper Kupp to be my wide receiver 1 last year, I had to really believe that he was going to have a crazy season like that. And I think it's possible for Mike Williams. Just like Keenan, he's playing with Justin Herbert. He's one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. And Mike Williams is that guy where you throw him a 50-50 ball, he's going to go get it every time. Which is a little worrisome because he worries me with how high he jumps and just the velocity at which he lands. I feel like he's always going to hurt himself. But he's awesome, and I really want him on my team this year. I'm going to be looking for him. I think one nice thing about him is that he's kind of going around that fourth round, fifth round this year so far. I think his ADP may rise a little bit going into September and August. But he's a guy that you can look to get fourth, fifth round. And so if your strategy is to draft running backs early and then go for Mike Williams in the fourth, fifth, I think you're going to be pretty happy. But I think he definitely can finish. I think he can finish top 10, but I think he'll finish at least like right outside the top 10. It's kind of how I feel. Number 12, we have Jaylen Waddle. Jaylen Waddle, he ripped it up last year. He got 13 overall, full PPR, 16 overall, half. He was awesome. He impressed me. I think the fact that Tua, he missed several games last year, and even then, Waddle still broke 1,000 yards in his rookie season, and he just looked dominant. Every time he was on the field, like he just looked like that guy. And I think the fact that you have Tyreek pairing with him, I think will help him. They'll help each other. Not everyone's going to be on Waddle for a second year, and they're gonna have to leave him open sometimes. You're gonna have to cover Tyreek. You're not gonna double Waddle and leave Tyreek open. And that's kind of why I'm high on Waddle. I think his connection with Tua is evident. They played great last year. I don't really have a reason to be worried about him this year. And yeah, so I have him at 12. I think that's a pretty good spot. I don't know if I see him finishing inside the top 10. That's one of those guys where I think 12 is probably pretty generous. But I think top 15, I feel pretty good about. Number 13, I have AJ Brown. AJ Brown, he finished at 32nd last year, but he also was hurt, and he was struggling even when he was healthy. But he had some monster games last year. I was checking his stats, and he had a couple games that were like 30-point games, full PPR, and that proves to me that when he is healthy, for the most part, he is a top wide receiver in the league. I think the team that they had last year on the Titans struggled a lot with Tannehill. And I feel a lot more confident in Hurts as his quarterback than Tannehill from last year. I think the reports are good so far. They're very positive with AJ Brown and Hurts in camp. And I don't think Hurts has an excuse to do poorly this year. I mean, he's got his weapons, Devonta Smith, and he's got AJ Brown. I think he just has to sling it. I know a lot of people are concerned because the Eagles last year were a very run dominant team, run heavy team. But having a guy like AJ Brown, you have to throw it to him. And if you're just going to pound it inside, that's fine. But that means that AJ Brown, like, he's going to be open. They're not going to run it the whole game. I think AJ Brown's going to get plenty of targets and plenty of touches to get top 13. And I think that's a pretty good spot. Top 15 is doable. And he's a guy that we know his talent, and we know that he can get top 10. But I think 13 is a good spot. 14, I got DK Metcalf. Now, yes, I'm a Seahawks fan. I'm from Seattle. But DK is a freak. Even if you're not a Seahawks fan, you know that DK is a freak in nature. And I know that the quarterback situation is going to be rough. It's going to be Drew Lock or Geno Smith. Should have been Baker, but I rest my case. I think a reason why I have him at 14 is because of the couple years last year where Russell missed. DK played really well with Geno. I think when you have a pretty below average and poor quarterback like Geno or Drew Lock, DK is your best friend. You throw it up to your biggest target who can go get those terrible balls, and he will make a play. I think Tyler Lockett will do okay. But I always felt like Tyler Lockett succeeded because of his connection with Russell. But DK is a guy that can succeed without a connection from his quarterback because he's that good, he's that talented, and I think he can just go get those balls. And so I think Geno Smith or Drew Lock, whoever's going to be the starting quarterback, I think they're going to look for him early, and I think they're just going to pepper him with targets, which is why I think he can finish at 14 for sure. Number 15, I have Michael Pittman Jr. A lot of people are really, really high on him. I think I was seeing a rankings the other day, and someone had him in their top 10, and I just don't know if he can be top 10. I'm not as confident in Matt Ryan as some other people are. But I think the fact that last year he finished as the 17th overall and 15th overall in full PPR and half PPR respectively with Carson Wentz was impressive. A lot of people hate Carson Wentz. He didn't have a great season last year, but I think the fact that Michael Pittman definitely performed well, even with kind of an average year from a quarterback in Carson last year, was impressive and a good sign for this year. I think Matt Ryan is still a good quarterback, but I don't know if Pittman's going to get enough work and enough consistency from Ryan to get top 10. I think 15 is a great target for him. He was pretty much there last year. Well, he was there in half PPR last year, 17 in full. And I think he can definitely get 15 again. I think that kind of 15 to 10 range is a pretty appropriate spot for him. And I feel good picking him like that. But some people feel like they want to shoot their shot with him and pick him to be their wide receiver one to maybe get him in the top 10 overall wide receiver at the end of the year. I say go for it. I'm just not really feeling it. All right. My number 16 wide receiver is Terry McLaurin. Terry finished 25th overall last year in both full and half PPR. And he's had some rough quarterbacks. He's had some rough goes. But he's still elite. I think he's a great wide receiver. He recently got paid a lot of money. And so he's secure and he's ready to go to work. I don't love his team. I don't love the Commanders. But they have Carson Wentz. And just like I talked about a second ago, even with Carson Wentz, Michael Pittman Jr. still got top 17, top 15. And I think Terry can do the same. I think Terry will be just right around there, 16, maybe 15, 14. But I think Terry is a better wide receiver than Michael Pittman. You can argue me on that, but I think he is. And so if you're putting him with Carson Wentz, who, and at this point, he's got to start making smarter decisions, but he's probably just going to air it out, which is good for Terry. Terry can go get those balls. Similar to how I feel about DK, I think Terry is good enough and skilled enough to just go get those balls, even if they're not good throws. So yeah, that's how I feel. Let's take another look. This is my top 16 though. Number 1, Justin Jefferson. Number 2, Cooper Kupp. 3, Jamar Chase. 4, Davante Adams. We got Stefon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Mike Williams, Jaylen Waddle, A.J. Brown. 14 is DK Metcalf. 15 is Michael Pittman Jr. And 16 is Terry McLaurin. So that's how I'm feeling. That's my top 16, who I think is going to finish in the top 16 after the end of this football season. Now, given my listing, I'm not saying that I would draft all of these people in this order. No, there's a couple guys that you can probably get for cheap. Like I talked about, Mike Williams. I'm probably not going to draft him super early unless I feel like I have to reach for him because someone else is going to take him. But there's some of those guys that keep an eye to your league, and you may be able to get a guy like a Mike Williams or Jaylen Waddle or DK Metcalf. Those guys could fall in your draft. Your league mates could just not be paying attention, or maybe they're just low on them. And I think that's your opportunity to get a guy like that to be one of your top receivers. So yeah, I'm super excited. Next episode, we're going to talk about running backs. Let me know in the comments what you guys would like me to cover. I'm planning on continue going over positions, getting up for the draft, as well as draft strategy. Let me know if there's anything else you guys would like me to cover. And yeah, catch you guys next time.